above 3,000 altitude is something that we need to think about, and it's important to understand a little bit about what altitude is before we kind of go into the nuances of what we may or may not feel on the Mont Blanc as compared to Kilimanjaro. So basically, as we go up into the atmosphere, there's less pressure, right? And because there's less pressure, there's less, the air particles that we breathe are not squeezed together in the same way that they are at sea level. So when I go up to higher altitude, when I take a breath of air, my lungs feel satisfied in the same way that they would at sea level. But the density of the air particles that are being consumed at altitude are less. So what happens is that obviously at high altitude, when we say there's less oxygen, what we actually mean is that there is less pressure holding this density of air particles together, so that when I take a full breath of air, I'm consuming the same amount of oxygen. So my body realizes this and reacts to it by producing more red blood cells. The production of red blood cells plus my body's returning to its equilibrium in the process of producing these red blood cells is what we call acclimatization. So getting used to the high altitude environment. And so in order for us to be able to do this efficiently, we need to consume more calories because we burn calories to produce those red blood cells. We need to drink more water because we need to dilute these new red blood cells into our bloodstream. And of course, we need to get rest because we're obviously burning more calories than we would normally. And this is something that our body is aware of, and it feels fatigue. So in the Mont Blanc, or when we do the Mont Blanc, we reach 4,810 meters, which is very high up. It's actually quite high up. However, the difference between a trip to the Mont Blanc and a trip to, say, Kilimanjaro or Everest Base Camp is that the amount of time we spend in altitude is quite limited. And a lot of the times, it's kind of touch and go. So Chamonix itself sits at 1,000 meters, just below, so not very high up. When we get to our first summit, normally we touch around 3,800, 3,900 meters, which would be our main acclimatization objective before going for the Mont Blanc. So again, it's a touch and go. So we'll sleep at high altitude, we go up to the high point, we come back down, we recover in Chamonix. And then the same thing would happen when we go for the Mont Blanc. So we go to a higher altitude, we'll be sleeping there, then we push for the summit and come back down. So it's touch and go. We're not really spending that much time in altitude. That doesn't mean that acclimatization isn't important. It's super important, especially because on the Mont Blanc, unlike on Kilimanjaro, we don't have the opportunity to go that slow. When we have technical objectives, and there are objective alpine dangers around us, like crevasse and time limits and all of these things that we need to consider, then the pace is no longer completely up to us. The mountain sets the pace for us. And sometimes that might mean that we have to push a little bit faster. And so this is where acclimatization really comes in. And it's important to be properly acclimatized so that our bodies can perform at high altitude. Having said that, our itineraries are designed for people who are coming straight to us from sea level. So acclimatization and the process of acclimatization is built into the itinerary, whether it's through where we're trekking, where we're climbing, where we're sleeping, or where we've positioned our rest days. So I hope that answers the question.